The Full Melt Show is intended for a mature audience. It contains adult themes, adult content, and sometimes adult language. Listener discretion is advised.
It's the Full Melt Show.
We have been following the journey of a local girl waiting for medical marijuana for about 18 months now. Tonight she has access, but we've learned there are still some challenges with the state's new program. Our Tori Wells brought those concerns to the state.
9-year-old Haley Hilt battles a rare disorder that causes seizures. Just a couple of weeks ago, she took her first doses of medical marijuana. Right away, her mother, Melissa, noticed a change.
The alertness. She's bright-eyed. She's watching and observing everything.
Haley is one of close to 1,200 patients the state says have been certified by their doctor. Just last month, we told you some patients were struggling to find a doctor in the program and that the state isn't publicly releasing a list. Julie Netherland from the Drug Policy Alliance told me over the phone that's still the case.
We're still hearing daily from patients who are not able to access medical marijuana because they can't find a physician to register them.
The State Department of Health told me in an emailed statement that, quote, patients should not have difficulty identifying a registered physician because their doctor has access to a list of registered doctors and can refer them. Netherland also told me access to the drug is an issue. Not all dispensaries approved by the state are up and running yet. Not every registered organization has the form of the drug patients are looking for.
We are hearing stories of patients driving extraordinary distances still to get access to the medicine they need. And what's compounding their frustration is there's not good information about when more medicine is going to be available.
We brought that concern to the State Department of Health. It says it's working with registered organizations on access. It expects operations to expand to meet demand as more patients join the program. Right now, Melissa's biggest concern is cost, especially as Haley's dose increases. The first month's supply cost them $182.
We are expecting next month's supply to be more like $550.
Medical marijuana is not covered by insurance. Melissa says family, friends, and community members are offering to help with the cost, and the family plans to hold fundraisers.
I feel like a lot of people are having to choose. Do you pay your mortgage and keep a roof over your child's head, or do you give them life-saving medical treatment?
Tori Wells, CBS 6 News.
The health department's website says prices vary among organizations and that the law does not mandate a discounted pricing program for patients, but does allow it.
Are you high? What are you talking about?
This is the Full Melt.
The Full Melt Show. A marijuana discussion about news, culture, politics, and lifestyle. FullMelt.com. Toll free. 844-420-TALK. 844-420-TALK.
Hey, remember this one thing. The old Kevin Costner saying from Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. Well, only if you build the damn thing right, let me tell you. All right, so you got this problem existing inside states that have made long ago, crafted for themselves from the bottom up, from scratch, their own method, their own version of having medical marijuana in whatever state it is. In this case, the story you just heard about came out of New York. And just that was from WRGB in Albany. Channel 6 News out there. WRGB. That was their story. And, so New York State has created a medical marijuana program. Yes. And it was crafted some time ago. It's been better than a year that this program has been put together. The problem is that it took a long time to get all the parts of the system to be working independently. And then once you've got all the parts of the system working, then you've got to get them working interconnected as a unit, as components of a bigger system. And they got that done. But it's just been terribly slow. And I guess it's this way. This is what people always complain about when you get government involved in regulation and all this stuff. You get mired in red tape and other governmental questions which drag things out forever. I mean, in the case of in the instance where people get sick and they need access to medicine that's discovered recently has a beneficial effect on their condition, or maybe even, God forbid, a cure to their problem. Because the way I look at it, if you have a condition and when you take something, the condition goes away, that to me is a cure. Well, I guess it's not a cure. Perhaps if you stopped taking the medication, maybe the condition would return. I suppose the definition of cure would mean you get the medication and then you take the course of medication, and then when you're done taking it, you're cured. Because now it's gone and you don't need the medication. You don't need it. You're just like you were before, mostly. But in the situation where you need access to life-saving medication, it's not going to cure you, but it's going to save your life. Or you're in a situation where you're literally dying, and you're trying to gain access to this medication to prevent from dying in jail, because that's what they would do to you if you just went out and got it and they caught you. They just throw you in jail. You could have a whole crap pile of dope sitting there trying to get somebody to make an extract for you so that you can cure your cancer, because I'm going to use that word. I don't care about the Federal Trade Commission. I'm selling nothing. I've got freedom of speech and news on my side. And I'm just here to tell you, the first time I heard somebody say cannabis was a cure for cancer, I laughed my ass off. I was literally rolling on the floor laughing. I'm like, how could people be so stupid? Guess who was really stupid? It was me. I had a closed mind on this subject because I knee-jerk reacted. Oh, now cannabis is curing cancer, right? Oh, I see how it's going. I'm here to tell you that is not a frivolous claim. It's by far not a frivolous claim. There are people, and they're going to call it in the medical community anecdotal stories, because that's all they are. But when you have a lot of anecdotal stories, they're no longer anecdotal. When you've got a crap ton of them coming in, example after example after example after example after example, I mean, they're just coming in on a steam train. Here's number one, number two, number three, number four, number five, number six. I mean, this is what it is. One after the other, bang, 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 in rapid-fire succession, cures to their cancer. Excuse me. It's all wrapped up in CBD. With THC. You see, people don't understand that cannabis is a whole plant medicine. You can't just use the CBD and expect that it's going to all be good. CBG gets synergy from other cannabinoids. And your human endocannabinoid system is impacted in such a way that your cancer now is re-regulated. Those tissue cells are re-regulated. You see, cancer is nothing more, and I'm not a doctor, I'm just telling you what I know about cancer. If you look up cancer, it's nearly always the rapid production of cellular tissue that has no death cycle. So your cells are created, and they have a lifespan. Every cell in your entire body, doesn't matter what kind of cell it is, it has a lifespan, a beginning and an end of its life. And it's planned in advance. Your body knows how long the cell's going to live. It knows when it's going to die and what happens after the cell dies and how it's replaced. In a cancerous situation, the cells are being created, and sometimes rapidly. And those are considered aggressive cancers, but the cells don't ever die. They're being replaced by other cells that never again die. And you end with this mass, this buildup of tissue that is not functioning properly. And this is how old tissue takes over, or new tissue takes over old tissue in organs and things in your body, and creates dysfunction, because the cells that are replacing the old cells, the ones that did die naturally, aren't dying naturally. And they don't have normal cellular function. So if it's an old liver cell and it used to have cellular function, and then when it died, it was replaced cancerously by a new liver cell, which is no longer going to die and also isn't performing like a liver cell, then you got a problem because now you've got liver cancer. It's going to keep building and building and building. The question is, how much do you let it build and replace of your existing liver with this non-functional tissue before you die? That's the race people are in. And then the problem that cancer curers have had with this, as far as, getting tumors to die, is that your body sees it all as viable, living, healthy tissue. Your body doesn't understand that the cancerous tissue isn't functioning normally. It just sees it as normal tissue. So, and this is what the same problem with medications. It sees it all the same. There's no black and white. It's all gray, all of it. So it can't pick out the diseased cell from the non-diseased cell. This has always been part of the big problem of curing cancers. CBD goes in and re-regulates the cells, and bingo bango, the old cells are now dying off because they've been reprogrammed to have a lifespan, to have an end of their life. And then when the cell is replaced, it's replaced by a normal functioning cell that is going to live and die its normal span. And you get the old tissue dying off. Sometimes it'll fall out just as a lump. It'll just, in the case of prostate cancer, people have just eliminated in body waste. Just boom, right there in the toilet. There's your prostate cancer. Skin cancers, people are putting this stuff on topically and having this stuff just fall off in a bandage or peel out of their skin like a heavy scar. I mean, these are amazing, profound things. But kids that have epilepsy and people who have cancer, if this was HIV/AIDS, they fast-tracked drugs to the marketplace, right? They sped up the time with which it took to get these drugs there because in the meantime, people were dying. They were paying the ultimate price. It didn't matter if it worked or not. Give them the chance. And that's what people in these states are having problems with. And it's not just New York. Go look at Illinois. Go look at their system there. Both of these places have exposed examples where patients are limited to access because they can't find doctors who are able to certify them. For whatever reason in the system that they've created, it's not happening. And sometimes it's the doctors are afraid to participate. They're going to get, maybe there's no protection for them or there's some legal exposure. In some places, the state wants you to write a prescription that the federal government, the DEA, won't allow you to write if you're going to keep your DEA license. And then how are you supposed to practice medicine if you can't use its primary fix-it, which is pharmaceutical drugs? That's what the DEA license gives you the ability to prescribe. And it's not just Illinois. You've got Florida in the mix, and there's a whole host of other places creating marijuana law where patients don't have access. More news coming up next.
You're getting the full melt.
When you need legal help, you don't want to guess at who's standing next to you in court. And when it comes to a medical marijuana defense, it's even smarter to partner with a lawyer before you need one. Based in Royal Oak, David Rudoy has a proven history of not being afraid to take your case all the way to the Supreme Court and win. Find the law offices of Rudoy Law
at RudoyLaw.com.
RudoyLaw.com is a quick reference on your rights concerning Michigan medical marijuana
and up-to-date news.
That's RUDOI Law.com. Call 248-935-9074 now and talk about your legal needs, because at RudoyLaw.com, we don't just stand up for you, we stand up with you.
RootMetrics, in the nation's largest independent study, tested wireless performance across the country. Verizon won big with 153 state wins. AT&T got 38, Sprint got 2, and T-Mobile got 0. Verizon also won first in the U.S. for data, call, speed, and reliability. AT&T got text. Stuck on an average network? Join Verizon, and we'll cover your cost to switch.
It's Steve Green for the Sweet Leaf in Flint, because now getting safe access to medical cannabis patients in Flint, Michigan is never more welcoming. Presenting the Sweet Leaf, a brand new patient experience, bringing 12 carefully selected caregivers housed in 9 separate offices to distinctly assist you with their knowledge and reputation for excellent patient care. Classes and training coming soon in the large community room. Check it out in person, 400 South Door Highway, or call 810-259-2571. The Sweet Leaf Center in Flint, 810-259-2571.
What's up with these things, Victor?
We decided to give ourselves stickers for each feature we release.
We read about 10,000 suggestions a week to create features that, as traders, we'd want to use.
10,000 suggestions? Who reads all of those?
He does.
For all the confidence you need, TD Ameritrade, you got this.
Introducing Sacred Elements, a place for natural and alternative healing for the mind, body, and soul. Sacred Elements. It's one place, all solutions.
Registered, licensed, certified, ordained.
Sacred Elements.
Massage, hypnosis, Reiki,
Sacred Elements.
raindrop, aroma and color therapy, body detox, ministry, life coaching, weight and nutrition counseling.
Sacred Elements. Next to the Sweet Leaf, 400 South Dorr Highway, Flint.
11 to 7 daily, closed Sunday.
Call 810-259-2570. It's the Full Melt Radio Show.
Radio show.
You know, it's really easy to find us. Really easy. We're at thefullmelt.com and other syndicated places across the nation, including YouTube. But I want to point you to iTunes. It's really simple to subscribe to our iTunes podcasts. Every day, each live program gets turned into a podcast and deposited right in your iTunes folder if you subscribe. And you can do that by clicking on the icon right there at thefullmelt.com. Right there at the top of the page, find the iTunes icon, click and subscribe. Just that simple. Right next to there, you'll find the Facebook and Twitter links. Please like and follow us there as well. So you've got these states that are having problems with, and I don't know, is this by design? Are these states by design intending for limited access? I would say the answer to that question unequivocally is yes. There's no question that New York, Illinois, Florida, just those states right there, and there are more examples, but I'm just going to use those as, let's call them the three amigos, or the three stooges, I guess, as I would call it, more like the three stooges. Look, Michigan isn't any better. We'll save that argument for later, but, there'd be a fourth stooge here, and it's my own home state. Oh, it's just a terrible example of the state in which I live. I am so ashamed. I just want to hide my head in the sand and pretend like I didn't go to Michigan State University, or I didn't live in Lansing. I did these things. Every time I root for Michigan State, and I'm like, it's got that word Michigan in there. I'm going to blow my cover. That's how ashamed I am. But Chicago, New York State, and Florida all have created medical marijuana programs that are limited. The Florida program is just in oil. The New York program started out as just oil and then expanded to some other forms. The Illinois program's a little bit more broad, but also access is limited, as I explained to you before the commercial break. I want to transition that ideal into other states that don't have anything going on yet. And they're starting to it's like 9 states, I think, that are just bastards about this idea. And it's really just rooted in this old prohibitionist messaging. They just can't get off that bandwagon. It seems like all things foreign to that idea are the devil. I mean, that's how well the prohibition message worked 70 plus years to now. And so part of what's going on in the news is states doing their own by legislation, not through referendum, not through people putting petition initiatives on the books and voting them in. Just the legislature sitting down and crafting outright retail cannabis sales to adults. There's a story in the news from WPTZ talking about the Vermont Senate approving a measure legalizing what they're calling recreational marijuana. We'll talk about that in just a bit. But right now I want to point to Pennsylvania. And the reason I want to talk about, and by the way, we're going to talk a little bit later on in the program about a big marijuana expo happening Texas style. We'll talk about that in just a bit. Because right there while, Senator Cruz, presidential candidate Cruz, is hanging out in Texas, languishing in the idea that, hey, I'm gonna win my state. I'm gonna win. Get her done. While he's drawing out all the conservatives There's a big marijuana expo about to go down. We'll talk about that in just a bit. Pennsylvania, though, and I've had legislators on from the Pennsylvania Senate. Now, in Pennsylvania, it seems like the most conservative of the two houses of government there in the legislature, the Senate and their House, is definitely the House. The House is the one that is more conservative. In Michigan, I'm much more used to it being the other way around. And in most other places, it seems like, including our own federal government, the House, in the federal, okay, here's a little lesson in civics. If you know much about the way our government was formed and the way it was put together and why, you'll know that there's only 100 senators because they wanted to break up representation in states. They wanted 100 senators, 2 from each of 50 states. And then the other House of Congress, being the House of Representatives, is made up based on population. So you get the larger the population grows, the more representation you have. The other version is you only get 2 per state. And this way it breaks up representation so that you have a little of each. You've got this, so senators are more important because there's always only 100. The House is always growing because the population is also always growing. So you might have 15 House members in your state, but you're only going to have 2 senators. So the senators technically have more value per senator, right? Because it's concentrated into 2. You got to get to one of those 2 people to get something done. And on the other side, you're going to need at least some of those people on the other side to get something done in the federal government. So the Senate has always been this very conservative, very thoughtful, very melodic. I guess they're certainly passionate over there, but they're much more thoughtful. There's much less outburst. There's a little more decorum in the Senate, for the most part. Save Senator Cruz, green eggs and spam, whatever. So in the House, people are a little more verbose. They're a little more obtuse. They're a little more out there. And there's a little less decorum. People will be a little more, boisterous. And I don't know. I guess, they're a little more hot-headed, a little less tempered. And most, legislatures in states kind of followed suit in one form or another with the way that their houses of the legislature are put together, the House and the Senate. And in most places, the House is like this, the House and the Senate of the federal government. Pennsylvania happens to be a little flip-floppy. They're a little twisted. They kind of turn that on its head. The House is definitely the more conservative of the two. They're the most, they're definitely harder to get something done there in the House. They're less likely to act on legislation. It's harder to persuade them to get on board and get something passed. The House is a little more, or the Senate rather, there is a little more liberal. They're a little not from a political standpoint. I'm saying they're a little more liberal with their moving of legislation, and like I said, it's a little more excited on the Senate side. So they're a little different for me. So when I see a news story whose headline reads "Medical Marijuana Amendments Vote Planned in Pennsylvania House," my ears perk up. See, if that was Michigan, I wouldn't care because the House doesn't mean anything. I mean, they do, but they don't. That's the easy hurdle to get over. That's the one most people get over. It's the Senate that you have a hard time getting over that hurdle, getting them to jump on your bill to get it to become law. The Senate is the most likely in Michigan and most other states, I think, to trip up legislation. Not exclusively. I'm painting with a broad brush, generally. So now we've had some representation from the Pennsylvania Senate. The Pennsylvania Senate talking about getting stuff done on this very show. But it was always the House that was a problem. So this story reading from, LehighValleyLive.com. Pennsylvania's bill to create a medical marijuana program is nearing a vote in the state House of Representatives, where amendments to the proposal abound. House Majority Leader David Reed, he's a Republican from Indiana, plans... Wait a minute. Now, wait a minute. Oh, that must be Indiana County. See, now they're confusing me. Or Indiana, the city. Oh, boy. Because I'm thinking, no, this is weird. Plans to bring the measure, Senate Bill 3, up for a vote when members return from recess the week of March 14th. This is according to the spokesman for the House of Republican leadership. Passed 40-7 in the Senate last May 12th. The bill is bound to go back before the Senate, if passed by the House, because of the amendments to be considered. See, like I said, they got this done in the Senate. It was the House that was having problems. So the Senate wants to consider amendments to what the House has proposed before they'll vote on it. So they're going to pass a different version with their amendments added, and then it'll have to go back to the House. There are more than 200 amendments. Whoa! And they go through the gamut. Some of them open up to full recreation. That's not by Republican members, and there's some that basically want to restrict it back down to the Stone Ages. Haven't they already done that? Mr. Miskin. Mr. Miskin, I can tell you... Gotta see who he is here in this story. I'm just trying to get you is the spokesman for the House Republican leadership. And Mr. Miskin says that he does not believe there is consensus on amendments to limit the psychoactive ingredient in cannabis, THC, or what they call tetrahydrocannabinol. And Steve Hostenstein, no, it's Hohenstein. It's Hohenstein, I'm sorry. Spokesman for Democratic bill sponsor Senator Dalen Leach said his office doesn't have an inside track on which amendments would come up for a vote or be likely to pass. We're hopeful that they keep their word on that, he said, of the next vote next month. And once they hold the vote, if it passes and it's changed in some way, it'll have to go back to the Senate. And if it comes back to the Senate, we'll see what changes they've made. Governor Tom Wolf, who on Wednesday announced his diagnosis of treatable prostate cancer, has maintained he supports opening up cannabis for medical use in Pennsylvania, as 23 states, including New Jersey and the District of Columbia, have done. Hohenstein says last year's Senate bill was overwhelmingly bipartisan and that advocates are anxious for the program to start. And you know what? They're going to be anxious for it to kick in once it gets there, assuming it does. Supporters earlier this month staged a sit-in at the House side of the Capitol Rotunda demand to vote, PennLive.com reports. We know that advocates have grown impatient, Hohenstein said Wednesday. We've grown impatient. We just really need the House to act on it. The top priority has to be getting the medicine to the patients that need it as soon as possible. And that's what I was saying in the earlier segment. HIV patients were, AIDS patients were getting fast-tracked medication through the FDA. It wasn't clearing all the hurdles, just a couple of major important ones to make sure it weren't outright poisoning people. But given that it had passed certain hallmarks quickly, they would just make it available right away. They would continue to do the testing and the clinical trialing, but make it available now for patients to use now. There are people that have chronic, debilitating, life-threatening illnesses up to and including death sentences from their own doctor. I mean, these are people who sat in the doctor's office on a visit one day where the doctor said, hey, come on, go ahead and sit down, have a seat. Let me talk to you for a few minutes. Your test results came back, and I know this is a big bite to chew on, but it's my job to tell it to you. So you've developed an incurable cancer. It's extremely what we call virulent. It has It's highly aggressive. And so it's my very unfortunate task to have to tell you that you're probably going to die in the next 3 to 6 months. So it's really important you get your affairs together, because this is the kind of thing that we can't in Western medicine treat. However, there's the big however, we're going to still suggest to you that you go through these very expensive chemo and radiation phases, even though we have no evidence that any of it is actually doing something. We can just say that we're doing something for you as you're dying. I mean, they're not going to say it like that, but they're going to say that pretty much those same words in a very nice way. So we would encourage you to take advantage of this, this study medication. You might get a placebo. You might, give these people access to the medication they so desperately need. That's my point. If you can do this at the FDA level for people who are going to die otherwise, can't you do it for the people that are in the same risk category that aren't HIV patients, or even maybe they are? Give them an opportunity to use something that has an offer of hope for them. And I'm not talking about something that's going to make them feel better while they're dying. I'm talking about something that may prevent their dying or extend their life significantly. The very most you'd have to lose from this is they're a little happier on their way out. That's the least you'll get from this. The bigger news is people are finding cures. And it's cancer, and it's a whole bunch of other things. If not a cure, at least something they can maintain with, something that is curing chronic pain, or perhaps stopping their epileptic fits, or at least slowing them down to some extent where they're manageable, where you're having 1 or 2 a month, or 1 or 2 every 6 months, or 1 or 2 a year, instead of 3 or 4 or 500 a day. Let these people have what they need. You can't say if they build it, they will come. They might not be around when the thing finishes getting built. Give them some sticks of lumber now. So we'll come back on the other side of this commercial break. Oncoming with more cannabis news. I'll see you in just a moment. Stand by.
You're getting the full melt.
I've seen things no man should bear, and those that every man should dare. From the beaches of Normandy to the far reaches of the earth. In my life, I have lived millions of lives. I've outrun robots and danced with dinosaurs. I've faced the faces of fear and fortitude and witnessed great beauty in the making. I've kept the company of kings and queens, but I'm no royalty or saint. I've traveled, trekked, wandered, and roamed, only to find myself right where I belong.
Jeep. See your authorized Jeep retailer for details on how you can become a Jeep owner.
We ask people to tell us something that happened in their past and something that might happen in their future.
The good things were put on yellow magnets and the bad ones on blue.
The results show
the past was a pretty even mix of good and bad.
Yet the future was almost all good things.
Now that you've seen the results of this experiment,
what does it mean to you?
We all want to think about positive stuff.
Realistically, there will be downtimes.
It's great to think optimistically, but let's plan for whatever the future might bring.
Prudential, bring your challenges.
If you're like us, your pets aren't just animals. They're members of your family. Pet Pain CBD hemp oil drops are great for aging as well as active dogs and cats. Some people are apprehensive about hemp treatments for pets. They ask us, what are you smoking? Absolutely nothing, and neither will your pet. Like other hemp-based products for humans, the allure is all of the benefits of cannabis without any of the high. The CBD oil has shown to rejuvenate the bones, joints, brain, stomach, eyes, and heart. And the drops contain absolutely no corn, wheat, soy, artificial colors and flavors, or preservatives. Pick some up today. Visit petpain.com or ask for Pet Pain at your local pet store. Petpain.com. CBD relief for your pet.
It's the Full Melt Radio Show.
Radio show.
So you can hear the Full Melt Show Monday through Friday from 7 until 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do this show every day, an hour a week. It seems like there's never enough time to cover all the stories in the news and how those stories might affect you in your bubble. I mean, there are a lot of people who listen to this program who are cannabis advocates. And I can tell you clearly, without question, I am biased from that standpoint. I am a cannabis advocate. I'm not an activist. There is a difference. Now, I used to do cannabis activism, where I'd go and be part of a rally, or I don't think I've ever held a sign. But I've certainly been present at rallies and supportive from both the standpoint of being there as a rally attendee and also as, a speaker, where you're up addressing the rally. I don't do that anymore, really, because I've really been so vested into telling the tale of what's happening, bringing you what's going on out on the street, what's happening from state to state, from city to city, and in the nation as a whole. Because as this proliferates across the country, and this is a big tidal wave that's coming across the country, and as much as people would like to, I don't know if we're going to use a biblical reference, it would probably be like, holding back the walls of the river, you know what I'm saying? Parting the seas. The poor Romans who thought they might be able to hold back those walls of water found out quickly they're going to drown. Same idea here. You're not going to stop this tidal wave coming in. The polling on this, the consensus on this from the population standpoint, from the citizens standpoint, both in states and in the nation as a whole, is far too high. And too much progress has been made along this roadmap. There's no turning back now. You can't go, this is, if you're in a horse-drawn wagon and it's a covered wagon and you're heading west during the gold rush, there comes a point along your travels where you can't afford to turn around. I mean, they do this in airplanes and boats. You're not allowed to leave for a destination without more than enough gasoline or fuel to get you there. You've got to have enough fuel. So if you're flying, you have to stop flying and turn around and go back the other direction when you've used up half your fuel back to a landing spot. I mean, that's just how these things work. As it relates to marijuana, it's a little less the reason why you can't turn around. It's just because it's like stuffing the genie back in the bottle. It's like trying to fold up the roadmap after it's been opened up to its full extent. And then you got to figure out how the folds go back together so that it ends up in that one little flip pack that sits neatly in the rack. Because if you don't, it's going to be a big twisted mess, isn't it? Especially if you've taken that roadmap out and wrinkled it a little bit and you can't tell. Maybe it's been up on the wall for a while. Now try and fold that bastard back up and get it where it's supposed to go. It isn't going to neatly fit in your glove compartment anymore. So you're just, there's no moving this issue back. Now, in places where they've passed it, in places where the tidal wave has already passed, the water's going to settle. Things are going to change a little bit after the wave. Where there wasn't water before, there is water now. And now that there's water there, things are going to settle out of the water. And the same thing goes with this cannabis thing, if I'm making that water analogy, that wave analogy. It's almost retrograde across the nation from the West. That's how this really has happened. It started in we had the Manifest Destiny when pilgrims landed here and people started, exploring, and the country was slowly built over time in way of the continental United States as we know it today. This Manifest Destiny, everything's moving west. This is retrograde, right? It started in California and everything is pushing east. It's really a strange phenomenon, if you ask me. If you ask me, it seems like places that would have existed longer might have a better chance of springing forth something new to spread to the rest of the nation. You got the youngins in the nation and state, ways states go, spreading it back this way. I think those people in Pennsylvania got to pay close attention to what's going on. I think you're going to see some movement in Pennsylvania. The recipe there in Pennsylvania is this. You've got 200 amendments being added to, and they said they're across the board, from very restrictive to very liberal. Some changing it to changing a medical marijuana law that is basic and skeletal and changing it into a fully recreational law. Some of those amendments in the Senate level do that. They're from liberal Democrats. Some of them are from the other extreme end of the political spectrum. Very conservative Republicans who would rather stuff this back into the genie's bottle, and it's just not going to happen. It doesn't mean that they're not going to pass amendments and stand behind them that attempt to do that. I think with that many amendments because this has already been passed at the House or at the Senate level. Now the House is going to add all these amendments or sift through them and agree to them or not, vote by vote. That's some 200 votes. I mean, they got to vote on 200 amendments. That's a lot. It's going to take a while. And if it doesn't, then I don't know that they really did their homework. Can you imagine answering yes or no to 200 questions on a single bill? And if I'm not mistaken, Pennsylvania is a part-time legislature. They don't have a full-time legislature like we have here in Michigan. Don't quote me on that. Not absolutely certain, but I'm pretty sure. Now, when you've got 200 amendments to go through, I think some of them are going to stick, and so you're going to pass some and you're going to fail some. One would think that at least one or two of those amendments would pass, and whatever doesn't pass, doesn't pass. Then they got to send it back to the House. And then the House has got to agree to whatever amendments the Senate added. And I believe that's likely to happen. People aren't going to be happy about it, but this is the political process. It's the give and take. You got to get to the middle. And the middle is what always gets done. It's rarely does the fringe get done. Like it's getting done here. The extreme right fringe is getting done here like butter going on bread in Michigan. That's going to stop real quick after the Governor Snyder debacle with the Flint water crisis and DPS, the Detroit public school system, in the shitter. And the city of Detroit still clawing its way back up onto the roadmap. Detroit just doing, oh, God, I got to play that, too. Oh, see. Now I'm gonna bend from where I was going because I have to play you this because it just, oh, gosh. This is a piece. This was in the news. And I actually saw this. Apple ID information updated. Shipping or billing. Oh, I got you. So this is in my Yahoo mail, and I got it from Rick Thompson at thecompassionchronicles.com. Rick is well known. He's a writer for many publications, including High Times, and has been a former co-host of this program and is currently a co-host of at least one other program. But if you go to thecompassionchronicles.com, you'll find a story published recently there about Mayor Mike Duggan, who, remember, ran for mayor in the city of Detroit during the time where there was an emergency financial manager who was declared Oh, good. Several killed, up to 20 injured in shootings in Heston, Kansas. Good Lord. This, according to ABC News and the Harvey County Sheriff. 20 injured in shootings in Heston, Kansas. Why do people got to shoot people? Seriously. Sorry, I had to give you that news update. Mayor Duggan was running for office in Detroit when the state had already taken over the city. We've got this weird emergency financial manager law here that says, hey, if the mayor decides that your finances aren't in order, and it's up to him to decree it, that we're just going to take over the city. We're going to replace your mayor with an emergency manager. The mayor has no power anymore. The city council has no power anymore. The people that you elected to run your own local government have no power anymore. And I think based on that alone, it's unconstitutional. Nobody's ever challenged it. I say nobody's ever challenged it because I've seen some cases filed, but I can't find anybody who can tell me their disposition. Really, an investigative reporter needs to get to the bottom of that, or I just need to get informed, one of the two. Mayor Duggan, let me just cue this up to the right spot because it takes a minute. It's ironically enough, as one of the producers of this program, or co-producers of this program, pointed out to me, ironically enough, this happens at about 4 minutes and 20 seconds into the video of the mayor's State of the City address. I'm going to pick it up from right here. This is Mayor Mike Duggan.
The person you can always count to stand up for affordable housing for the homeless who goes out herself.
He's introducing his cabinet, which is really the city council.
In our community, Councilmember Mary Sheffield.
Okay, so after Sheffield comes Tate. Oh, no.
The man who sponsored the first ordinance to put cameras in our gas station.
Yeah, the cameras in the gas station guy. So there's one more. And then Tate's the last guy. Oh, crap. Hang on. So I got to put this on pause. We'll put this on pause because we're hitting a commercial break. So when we come back from the break, I'll play you the rest of Mike Duggan. The reason I did this lead up for you is because, the city passed regulations for medical marijuana dispensaries there. We talked a little bit about this on the program. I want to fill you in on that, and then I want to play his comment from his State of the City address just 2 days ago, and you tell me what's in the plans for the city on the pot question.
You're getting the full melt.
Promotional consideration provided by NoSmell.com, pioneering the storage market for cannabis users. The NoSmell patented bag technology offers users 100% smell-proof detection from even the most sophisticated of noses. NoSmell.com, so nobody knows. When placing your order for a no-smell bag, make sure to use discount code FULLMELT and take 10% off the entire order. Learn more about no-smell technology at nosmell.com.
Young students are our future. They're eager to learn, eager to succeed, eager to make the world a better place. And they want to make it to school safely. Share the road. Take care when passing. And always leave 3 feet between you and people on bikes. Bikes are legal road vehicles. We're all drivers.
When you need legal help, you don't want to guess at who's standing next to you in court. And when it comes to a medical marijuana defense, it's even smarter to partner with a lawyer before you need one. Based in Royal Oak, David Rudoy has a proven history of not being afraid to take your case all the way to the Supreme Court and win. Find the law offices of Rudoy Law
at RudoyLaw.com.
RudoyLaw.com is a quick reference on your rights concerning Michigan medical marijuana
and up-to-date news.
That's RUDOI Law.com. Call 248-935-9074 now and talk about your legal needs, because at RudoyLaw.com, we don't just stand up for you, we stand up with you.
If you're like us, your pets aren't just animals. They're members of your family. Pet Pain CBD hemp oil drops are great for aging as well as active dogs and cats. Some people are apprehensive about hemp treatments for pets. They ask us, what are you smoking? Absolutely nothing, and neither will your pet. Like other hemp-based products for humans, the allure is all of the benefits of cannabis without any of the high. The CBD oil has shown to rejuvenate the bones, joints, brain, stomach, eyes, and heart. And the drops contain absolutely no corn, wheat, soy, artificial colors and flavors, or preservatives. Pick some up today. Visit petpain.com or ask for Pet Pain at your local pet store. Petpain.com. CBD relief for your pet.
Hey, it's Steve Green for the Sweet Leaf in Flint, because now getting safe access to medical cannabis patients in Flint, Michigan is never more welcoming. Presenting the Sweet Leaf, a brand new patient experience bringing 12 carefully selected caregivers housed in 9 separate offices to distinctly assist you with their knowledge and reputation for excellent patient care. Classes and training coming soon in the large community room. Check it out in person, 400 South Door Highway, or call 810-259-2571. The Sweet Leaf Center in Flint, 810-259-2571. 571. It's the Full Melt Radio Show. So I was telling you before the break about Mayor Duggan and the Detroit City Council crafting legislation, despite state law that says, or at least according to court rulings, that dispensaries in the state of Michigan aren't legal. Most cities where dispensaries exist in the state have crafted their own local ordinances that permit licensing of these dispensaries, despite the fact that the state says that they're illegal. And this has been a line drawn in the sand for a while now. And so I remember when Mayor Duggan, when the city was under emergency, was under state control, and the local leadership had been basically neutered, no control over anything. The local elected officials were powerless. The state, Lansing, was now running Detroit. When I say Lansing, the state capital, the state of Michigan was running Detroit. They're the ones that got the bankruptcy done. They're the ones that improved some public facades in the downtown area. They got some economic development going. There's no question that Detroit is a phoenix rising from the ashes. It's still a tattered phoenix. It hasn't risen yet. It's just kind of mumbling around there a little bit. It's gathering itself together. You're watching it in slow motion, but it's happening. A far cry from what was going on before. And if you watch the entirety of the mayor's State of the City address, you'll get a feel for it. And you can go to YouTube and look it up. Mayor Duggan's State of the City address. And you'll find the whole thing there. It's about 50 minutes long. It's a little over 50 minutes long. And like I said, I only caught the tail end of this. It was actually, I'd recorded a local program that was preempted by the very end of this State of the City address. And I was mad because half of my half-hour comedy was gone. And here's the mayor wrapping up some State of the City address that I didn't even know was going on that day. I probably would have watched or recorded it, set it up to be recorded. But later, afterwards, now I got to circle back around to the state. State saying its dispensaries aren't legal. Detroit recently crafted legislation allowing for dispensaries because clearly there would be so much pushback if they didn't allow for them that there would be an uprising and people would have done some drastic things, and they're going to probably do some of these things anyways because it wasn't the intent of the city through crafting these ordinances to allow for dispensaries to proliferate dispensaries. It was indeed to decrease them in number by at least 3/4. I mean, there are about 200 some dispensaries in the city limits right now, as we speak, as we talk. Some of them are closed now because they've been raided. Some of them are open now after they've been raided. And some are still opening in new places. The city has, since it's passed two parts to this legislation, these ordinances. There are two ordinances. One is the one that allows for licensing. The other one is the zoning ordinance. Where can we allow these businesses to exist at? And it's that part of the ordinance, for the most part, that really is designed to restrict and severely limit the number of dispensaries there. So they want to, if they pass this ordinance, well, they did. As the ordinance was passed, it will reduce just by availability locations alone. If you draw a circle around all these places, and then they've got enough barrier between them and one of these other locations that they can't be too close to, and that includes schools and churches and other locations like themselves and liquor stores and other special variants licensing, what they call specialty licensing or special. They're talking mostly about liquor stores, but we're talking topless bars. That would be another one. I don't know about tobacco shops. It seems like tobacco shops would also be one. But they can't be within 1,000 feet of any of these things. In some cases, 2,000 feet. because the zoning ordinance is in and of itself designed to severely limit the number of dispensaries available to license. So they've got to adhere to the rules, and so what the city did is they said, look, they sent a note, a cease and desist note, basically, a warning letter to all the dispensaries saying, look, continue to operate past today at your own peril. Because if you want to stay open as a medical marijuana dispensary, you're going to have to apply for city licensing and or a variance. So in other words, apply for a special exception to that licensing. And you got to do one of those two things, or we could take legal action on you. And they told everybody kind of, in a news story, not as official language, but they said, we're not going to actively go out and shut you guys down. What we are going to do is one by one start picking on you when people bitch. And the people that have been bitching are the churches primarily. It's primarily been old ladies in churches that have bitched about the medical marijuana dispensaries. Some of them with some very valid claims. Hey, my parishioners are walking into church and they can smell the marijuana in the foyer of the church. They're shaking the pastor's hand as they're coming in smelling weed. We don't want this. And I would say they've got a right to say, no, they don't want that. I perfectly agree with that. I don't think the answer is spacing. I don't think that because there's a dispensary 500 feet that direction or in the other direction or in any direction, that's the answer to the problem. The problem is the smell, the odor, and if they're growing it or just the smell of it in general is permeating into your area for whatever reason, and I'm sure an average person could tell that, the answer to that question is scrubbing of the air. You put some filtration in there, and this generally eliminates the problem. They do it for all other odor-related problems in business. Just put a filter in. Filter the air. It isn't necessarily you've got to move 2,000 feet away from us. 2,000 feet is a long way. It's nearly a mile. It was a half mile. It's a long ways. How many feet? I forgot how many feet are in a mile. See, it's been that long since the high school days. Just got to look this up now because now I'm just curious. But while I'm looking that up, I'm going to play this for you. This is Mayor Mike Duggan. Mike is talking about Councilman Tate. Councilman Tate is the one that took up the issue of the church groups and the little old ladies who've been batting him over the head with their umbrellas about the pot shops opening up too close or just in their neighborhoods in general. But they're using the churches a lot as an excuse because you got to remember the churches are some of the only places left open in the city of Detroit in the downtown area, not in the immediate downtown, but in what makes up the general downtown area. Here's Mayor Duggan back again with this is 4 minutes and 20 seconds into his State of the City address. It's a short piece. Hang on and listen to it here. Councilman Tate now. The guy that
and
did
the man responsible for the fact we're finally going to start shutting down marijuana dispensaries in the city of Detroit, Councilman James Tate.
Now, that's it. That's the only thing he mentions about the medical marijuana dispensaries, but he says it with such fervor. He says it with such... he's holding it up as a star on his forehead. Come here, Councilman Tate. I'm going to put a star on your forehead for doing such a great job at closing down the medical marijuana dispensaries. We're finally going to start doing it. Isn't that great, audience? Mixed reaction from the audience. Let me just remind you, Mr. Duggan and City Council, that you are a city that just went through bankruptcy. In fact, the largest bankruptcy ever assembled in the history of the United States government, going back its 200-plus years. It was done under questionable circumstances. And the reason that they took this extreme measure to dismiss your overwhelmingly gigantic, I'm going to say ginormous, debt that you've built up because you've just mismanaged your city terribly over the years. Ever since the 60s, that city's been just dwindling and dwindling and dwindling. In the 80s, it took a big crap. And and then again in the early 2000s, it just died. It took, a number of city-like EMT specialists to go in there and fix that thing. And so here's I've only got 30 seconds left. Here's the run and short of it. These ordinances are not going to stand because there's going to be a referendum to repeal both those parts of that licensing, the ordinance and the licensing itself. And then they're going to run their own special, their own special ordinance by ballot initiative. And they're going to change everything back around. So don't rest your haunches yet, City of Detroit and Mayor Mike.
The Full Melt Show is a production of TFM Media.